The royal dining hall remained frozen in absolute silence for what felt like hours. Princess Kithara stared at her mother with wide eyes, her mind struggling to process what she had just heard. The nobles and courtiers around them looked like statues afraid to move or speak or even breathe. "You're lying," Kithara finally whispered. "This is some kind of joke. It has to be." Queen Lisara's heart broke at the pain and confusion in her daughter's voice. "I wish it were, my dear one, but it is the truth. Marcus Kane is your father, and I have spent 25 years lying to you about it." Ambassador Krill suddenly found his voice. "Your Majesty, surely you cannot be serious. The princess is pure Vorthak nobility. Her father was Lord Zaphon, who died honorably in training exercises. This is documented in all the royal records." "The records lie," Lysara said simply. "We created false documents to hide the truth. Kithara is half human, and the High Council has known it all along." The implications of this revelation hit the court like a shockwave. If the princess was half human, it meant everything they believed about racial superiority was false. It meant their future queen carried the blood of the species they had been taught to despise. Kithara stood up slowly, her legs shaking. "No," she said, backing away from her mother. "No, this cannot be true. I am Vorthak. I am pure. I have abilities that humans do not possess. I can live for thousands of years. I can use psionic powers." "You can do those things because Vorthak genetics are dominant," Lysara explained gently. "But you also have human traits. Your adaptability, your quick thinking in crisis situations, your ability to understand other species better than most Vorthak. These come from your father." "I hate humans," Kithara shouted, her voice echoing off the crystal walls. "They are weak and pathetic and inferior. How can you tell me I am one of them?" "Because you need to know the truth before tomorrow," Lysara said. "The High Council is planning to kill you during your coronation ceremony. They cannot risk the Empire learning that their future queen is half human." This second revelation shattered what remained of Kithara's composure. She sank back into her chair, her face pale with shock. "What are you saying?" Before Lysara could answer, the dining hall doors burst open. High Counselor Vextan strode in with a squad of armed guards, his ancient face twisted with rage. Behind him came two more council members, their expressions grim and determined. "Arrest the Queen for treason," Vextan commanded. "She has clearly lost her mind and is spreading dangerous lies that threaten the stability of the Empire. Touch my mother and I will kill you myself," Kithara said, rising to her feet. Despite her shock and confusion, her protective instincts toward Lysara remained strong. "Your Highness, you do not understand," Vextan said in a voice like poisoned honey. "Your mother has been corrupted by contact with that human warrior. She is no longer fit to rule. We must act to preserve the Empire. The only corruption here comes from you," Lysara said, facing the High Council without fear. "You have spent 25 years planning to murder my daughter. You forced me to lie to her, to deny her the right to know her own father, all to maintain your grip on power." "Lies and madness," Vextan declared. "Guards, arrest them both. We will deal with the human warrior separately." But before the guards could move, the dining hall doors opened again. Marcus Kane walked in, still wearing his tournament armor, his sword at his side. He moved with the calm confidence that Lysara remembered so well, showing no fear despite being outnumbered 20-1. "I think you'll want to see this first," Marcus said, holding up a small data crystal. "Unless you enjoy having your private communications broadcast across the galaxy." Vextan's face went white. "What are you talking about?" "Recorded conversations between High Council members discussing the best way to eliminate Princess Kithara," Marcus explained. "Financial records showing payments to assassins. Detailed plans for sabotaging her coronation ceremony. 25 years of evidence proving that you have been planning to commit regicide." "That's impossible," another council member stammered. "Our communications are encrypted with the highest level security." Marcus smiled, and for the first time since entering the hall, he looked genuinely amused. "You're forgetting that I helped design some of your security systems during the war. I know all your backdoors and hidden access points. I've been collecting evidence against you for years." Kithara looked back and forth between her mother, the High Council, and the human warrior who claimed to be her father. Her world had been turned upside down in the span of minutes, and she was struggling to understand who to trust. "Even if what you say is true," she said to Marcus, "why should I believe you? Why should I trust someone who abandoned me before I was even born?" The pain in Marcus's eyes was immediate and profound. "I didn't abandon you by choice, Kithara. The High Council gave me an ultimatum: leave Vorthak space forever, or they would destroy what remained of humanity. They used the threat of genocide to force me away from you and your mother." "Lies," Vextan shouted. "This human is a master manipulator. He seeks to destroy our empire from within by turning our own royal family against us." "Then let's settle this the old way," Marcus said calmly. "Trial by combat. If I win, the evidence I've collected gets broadcast to every world in the empire. If your champion wins, I'll submit to execution and take my secrets to the grave. And who would be our champion?" Vextan asked suspiciously. "Prince Thylax," Marcus replied. "Tomorrow's final match becomes something far more important than a tournament. It becomes a test of truth itself." Kithara's mind was reeling. Thylax was her betrothed, the man she had planned to marry. But if Marcus Kane was really her father, and if the High Council had really been planning to kill her, then everything she believed about her life was false. "I need proof," she said suddenly. "Not just recordings or documents that could be forged. I need real proof that you are who you claim to be." Marcus nodded, understanding her need for certainty. "What would convince you?" Kithara thought for a moment, then made a decision that surprised everyone in the room. "Fight me," she said. "Right here, right now. If you are really my father, if you really trained with my mother during the war, then you'll know techniques that only she could have taught you, combat forms that are known only to the royal family." "Kithara, no," Lysera protested. "You could be hurt." "I can handle myself, mother," Kithara said firmly. "Besides, if he is really my father, he won't hurt me." Marcus drew his sword slowly, his expression sad but resigned. "Very well, but I warn you, some truths are painful to learn." What followed was not really a battle, but a revelation in motion. Marcus fought with techniques that Kithara recognized from her own training, moves that her mother had taught her, claiming they were ancient Vorthak forms. But now she could see the subtle differences, the human adaptations that made the techniques more flexible and unpredictable. More than that, Marcus fought with a restraint and care that spoke of deep love. He could have defeated her quickly, but instead he gave her time to recognize the familiar patterns, to understand the connection between his fighting style and her own. When she finally lowered her weapon in recognition of defeat, tears were streaming down her face. "You really are my father?" she whispered. "Yes," Marcus said gently. "And I have loved you every day of your life, even from a distance." The High Council guards were raising their weapons, but Kithara's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Anyone who moves against my father will answer to me personally," she declared, her royal authority filling her words with power. For the first time in 25 years, the royal family of the Vorthak Empire stood together, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Tomorrow would bring the final tournament match, but tonight had already brought something far more valuable: the truth, and the chance for a father and daughter to finally know each other. Marcus Kane moved like water flowing around stone. His blade flashed in the sunlight as he struck at the joints in Gorthak's armor plating, finding the tiny gaps that most fighters would never notice. The Thraxian berserker roared in frustration as his massive weapons failed to connect with the human who seemed to dance just out of reach. Every time Gorthak swung his hammer or fired his energy cannon, Marcus was somewhere else, always moving, always thinking. Princess Kithara stopped laughing. Her mouth fell open as she watched the human warrior systematically dismantle one of the galaxy's most feared fighters. "How is he doing that?" she whispered. Within 10 minutes, Gorthak the Destroyer lay unconscious, on the crystal floor, brought down not by brute force but by precise strikes to nerve clusters that most beings didn't even know existed. Marcus Kane stood over his fallen opponent, breathing hard but victorious. He raised his sword in salute to the crowd, then walked calmly from the arena without celebrating or showing off. The crowd was silent for a moment, then erupted in confused cheers. They had expected to see a massacre, but instead they had witnessed something far more interesting. A human had defeated one of the tournament favorites using nothing but skill and intelligence. Queen Lysara's face had gone pale. Her hands gripped her throne so tightly that the crystal began to crack under the pressure. She stared at the spot where Marcus had disappeared from view, her mind racing with memories she had tried to forget. "Mother, did you see that?" Kythera asked, her voice filled with amazement. "I don't understand how he won. Gorthak should have crushed him in seconds." "Luck," said Ambassador Krell, though his voice lacked conviction. "Pure luck. The berserker must have slipped on the arena floor." But Queen Lysara knew it wasn't luck. She had seen those moves before, 25 years ago in a different arena on a different world. The way Marcus had moved, the precise targeting of weak points, the calm patience in the face of overwhelming force. It was all exactly the same. Her mind drifted back against her will, carried by memories she had buried deep in her heart. The images came flooding back like a dam breaking, carrying her to a time of war and darkness and desperate hope. 25 years ago, the galaxy had been under attack by something far worse than any single warrior. The devourer swarms had appeared, from the void between galaxies, consuming entire star systems and leaving nothing but empty space behind. They were not like other enemies. They could not be negotiated with or reasoned with. They existed only to consume and destroy. The Vorthak Empire had been one of the first to encounter them. Despite their advanced technology and powerful military, the Vorthak forces had been pushed back system after system. Other galactic powers had fallen even faster. The Zephyrian Federation had lasted only 6 months. The Crimson Empire had been devoured in 3 weeks. Entire species had been wiped, out without a trace. Into this darkness had come a small human fleet, battered and desperate. They had been fleeing the destruction of their outer colonies when they stumbled into Vorthak space. At first, the Empire had prepared to destroy them as trespassers. Humans were unknown to most of the galaxy then, considered a primitive species not worth noticing, but their fleet commander had requested an audience with the Vorthak High Council. He had spoken with such passion and intelligence about the threat facing all life in the galaxy that Queen Lysara had agreed to hear him out. She remembered that first meeting as clearly as if it had happened yesterday. Commander Marcus Kane had walked into the royal throne room with the same calm confidence she had just seen in the arena. He wore a simple military uniform and carried no weapons, but there was something about him that commanded respect. When he spoke about the swarms, his words carried the weight of someone who had seen entire worlds die. "Your Majesty," he had said, "I know our species are strangers to each other. I know humans seem primitive compared to the great Vorthak Empire. But the creatures that destroyed our colonies don't care about our differences. They will consume everything, Vorthak and human alike, unless we work together to stop them." The High Council had laughed at him then, just as Kythera had laughed at him in the arena. They could not believe that a species barely capable of interstellar travel could offer anything useful to the mighty Vorthak Empire. But Lysara had seen something in Marcus Kane's eyes that made her listen. "What do you propose?" she had asked. "Let me fight alongside your warriors," he had said. "Let me show you what humans can do when we're fighting for something we believe in. We may not have your technology or your natural abilities, but we have something else. We never give up." Against the advice of her council, Lysara had agreed. She had assigned Marcus to work with the Vorthak military as an advisor and observer. What happened next had changed everything. Marcus had studied the swarms with an intensity that impressed even the Vorthak scientists. He analyzed their attack patterns, their movement through space, their methods of consumption. While others focused on building bigger weapons or stronger shields, Marcus looked for weaknesses that others couldn't see. He discovered that the swarms, despite their overwhelming power, followed predictable patterns. They were like a biological machine, efficient but inflexible. Marcus developed tactics that used this inflexibility against them. He showed Vorthak commanders how to use hit-and-run attacks to break up swarm formations. He found ways to turn their own momentum into a weakness. More than that, he had shown the Vorthak warriors something they had never expected from humans: courage that bordered on insanity. Marcus had led boarding parties onto swarm ships, fought hand-to-hand with creatures twice his size, and never backed down even when facing impossible odds. Slowly, the tide of war had begun to turn. Other species, seeing the success of the human Vorthak alliance, had joined the fight. Marcus had become a legend throughout the galaxy, the human commander who had helped save civilization itself. And somewhere during those dark years of war, Queen Lysara had fallen in love with him. She remembered quiet moments between battles when they had talked about their hopes for the future. Marcus had told her about Earth, about the blue skies, and green forests that the swarms had taken from him. She had shared with him the ancient songs of her people, the stories passed down through 10,000 years of Vorthak history. "You're not what I expected from an alien queen," Marcus had said one night as they stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the stars. "You're not what I expected from a human warrior," she had replied. The war had finally ended when Marcus had led a desperate assault on the swarm's central command ship. The battle had lasted 3 days and nights, with Marcus and a small team of volunteers fighting their way through endless corridors filled with nightmarish creatures. When they finally reached the ship's core and destroyed it, the entire swarm network had collapsed. The galaxy had been saved, but the cost had been terrible. Billions had died. Entire worlds had been consumed. The human colonies were gone, leaving Marcus and his people without a home. Queen Lysara had offered them sanctuary in Vorthak space. For a time it had seemed like they might build something beautiful together, human and Vorthak working side by side. But the High Council had other ideas. In the arena below, Marcus Kane was preparing for his second match. His opponent was a Zephyrian blade dancer, fast and deadly. But Lysara knew he would win. She had seen him fight creatures far worse than anything this tournament could offer. "Mother," Kithara's voice brought her back to the present. "You look strange. Are you feeling well?" Queen Lysara forced herself to smile. "I'm fine, dear one. Just remembering old battles." But she wasn't fine. Seeing Marcus again, alive and apparently unchanged after 25 years, had opened wounds in her heart that she thought had healed long ago. How was he still alive? Why had he come here? And most terrifying of all, what would happen when the High Council realized who he was? Marcus Kane's second victory was even more impressive than his first. The Zephyrian blade dancer, famous for movements so fast they appeared as blurs to most eyes, found himself constantly off balance against the human warrior. Marcus seemed to know where his opponent would strike before the attack even began. He moved with economic precision, wasting no energy, making every step and every swing count. Princess Kithara watched in growing amazement as the human defeated opponent after opponent throughout the day. Each victory was different but equally decisive. Against a cybernetically enhanced soldier from the core worlds, Marcus had found a way to overload the warrior's implants. Against a Krillian champion with natural armor plating, he had discovered weak points that shouldn't have existed. "I don't understand it," Kithara said to her mother as the day's matches concluded. "These are some of the greatest warriors in the galaxy, and this human is defeating them like they're children. How is that possible?" Queen Lysara tried to maintain her composure, but inside her mind was a storm of confusion and hope and fear. Every technique Marcus used in the arena was familiar to her. She had seen him develop these methods during the war, watched him practice them in training sessions aboard her flagship. But that was 25 years ago. Even if he had somehow survived all this time, he should be an old man by now. Humans aged quickly compared to other species. "Perhaps we underestimated human capabilities," Lysara said carefully. "But Mother, you've always taught me that humans are a young species, barely out of their primitive stage. You said they had no special abilities, no natural weapons, no advantages over other galactic powers." "I may have been wrong," Lysara admitted, though the words tasted bitter in her mouth. She had not been wrong about humans in general. She had been lying to protect secrets that could destroy them all. That night, after the tournament crowds had gone home and the arena lights had dimmed, Queen Lysara made a decision that could cost her everything. She used her royal access codes to slip past security and make her way to the competitor housing areas deep beneath the arena. The corridors were quiet, lit only by emergency lighting that cast strange shadows on the crystal walls. She found Marcus Kane's quarters easily enough. As the tournament's most surprising competitor, he had been given a room near the center of the complex. Lysara stood outside his door for long minutes, her hand raised to knock, trying to find the courage to face the man she had never stopped loving. Before she could make up her mind, the door opened. Marcus Kane stood there, looking exactly as she remembered him, except for the gray in his hair and the new lines around his eyes. He wore simple clothes and his expression showed no surprise at seeing her. "Hello, Lysara," he said quietly. "I wondered when you would come." Her carefully prepared words died in her throat. For a moment she was not the queen of the Vorthak Empire, but simply a woman seeing the love of her life after 25 years of believing him dead. "Marcus," she whispered. "How are you here? How are you still alive?" He stepped aside to let her enter his quarters. The room was simple but comfortable, with a bed, a desk, and a small sitting area. Marcus gestured for her to take a chair while he remained standing, his hands clasped behind his back in the military posture she remembered so well. "It's a long story," he said. "The short version is that I spent most of the last 25 years in cryosleep, taking missions that required long-distance travel between star systems. I aged maybe 5 years while the galaxy aged 25. "But why?" Lysara asked. "After the High Council forced you to leave, I thought you had gone back to what remained of human space. I thought you had built a new life somewhere far from here." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, looking out the small window at the crystal spires of the Vorthak capital city. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of years of loneliness and regret. "I tried," he said. "I really tried to forget about this place, about you, about everything we had together. But I couldn't just disappear knowing that the High Council was still in power. They forced me to abandon the woman I loved and the child I never got to. No, but they also made it clear that they saw humans as a threat to their control." Lysara's heart skipped a beat. "You know about Kythera?" "I've always known," Marcus said, turning to look at her with eyes full of pain. "Did you think I would leave without making sure you were both safe? I had friends among your military who kept me informed. I know she grew up believing her father was a Vorthak noble who died in a training accident. I know she's been raised to see humans as inferior beings. I know she has no idea that half her genetic code comes from the species she likes to mock." The words hit Lysara like physical blows. "Marcus, you don't understand what it was like after you left. The High Council made it clear that any connection to you would be considered treason. I had to protect her. I had to protect our people." "I know," Marcus said gently. "I never blamed you for the choice you made. You did what you had to do to keep Kythera safe. But I couldn't just walk away and pretend none of it mattered. Then, why are you here now? Why risk everything by entering this tournament? The High Council will recognize you eventually." Marcus smiled, but it was not a happy expression. "They already have. I've been getting reports that certain council members have been asking questions about the human competitor. They remember the name Marcus Kane even if they thought I was dead." Lysara felt cold fear grip her heart. "Then you have to leave. Now, tonight, before they can move against you." "I'm not going anywhere," Marcus said firmly. "Not this time. I came here because I discovered something the High Council doesn't want anyone to know. They've been planning to eliminate Kythera once she produces an heir to the throne." The words hit Lysara like a physical blow. She staggered backward, her face pale with shock. "What are you talking about?" "Think about it, Lysara. Kythera is half human even if nobody knows it, but hybrid genetics are unpredictable. What happens when she has children? What if some of them show obviously human traits? The High Council has spent 25 years building their narrative that humans are inferior. They can't risk that story falling apart." "You're lying," Lysara whispered, but even as she said it, she knew he wasn't. There had been too many small signs over the years, too many conversations that ended abruptly when she entered a room, too many council members who watched Kithara with calculating eyes. "I have proof," Marcus said. "Documents, communications, financial records showing payments to assassins. They're planning to make it look like an accident during her upcoming coronation ceremony. A tragic explosion that kills the princess and makes the High Council look like grieving servants of the crown." Lysera sank into the chair, her mind reeling. Everything she had sacrificed, everything she had endured, all of it had been for nothing. The High Council had always planned to kill their daughter. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "Help me expose them," Marcus said. "Help me show the people of the Empire what their leaders really are, and help me tell our daughter the truth before it's too late." In the arena above them, maintenance crews were preparing for the next day's matches. Tomorrow would bring the semi-finals, and Marcus Kane would face his greatest challenge yet. But the real battle would not be fought with swords and energy weapons. It would be fought with truth and courage and the hope that a daughter could forgive the parents who had lied to her for 25 years. "She hates humans," Lysera said quietly. "She's spent her whole life believing they're beneath her notice. How do you think she'll react when she learns she's half human herself?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "But she deserves to know the truth, and she deserves the chance to decide for herself what kind of person she wants to be." Outside, the twin suns of Zephyria were setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new revelations. But tonight, for the first time in 25 years, Marcus Kane and Queen Lysera sat together in the same room, planning to fight for their daughter's future. The semi-final day of the tournament brought the largest crowds yet. Beings from across the galaxy had traveled to Zephyria to witness what many were calling the most surprising tournament in centuries. The mysterious human warrior, Marcus Kane, had become the talk of every cantina and meeting hall in the sector. Nobody could understand how a member of such a young species was dominating fighters who had trained for centuries. Princess Kithara sat in the royal box, her mind still spinning from the previous day's events. She had watched Marcus defeat opponent after opponent with moves that seemed to defy everything she knew about combat. His fighting style was unlike anything she had ever seen, combining techniques from dozens of different martial traditions with innovations that appeared to be his own creation. "Mother, you seem distracted today," Kithara observed, glancing at Queen Lysera. "Are you feeling well?" Lysera forced a smile, though her hands trembled slightly as she gripped her throne. The previous night's conversation with Marcus had shattered her world. Learning that the High Council planned to murder their daughter had awakened a fury in her heart that she had not felt since the war against the Devourers. But even worse was the knowledge that today might be the day everything came into the open. "I am fine, dear one," Lysera said, "just eager to see how today's matches unfold." In the arena below, Marcus Kane was preparing for his semi-final bout against a warrior from the Crimson Nebula, a being known as Vextar the Undefeated. Vextar stood over 2.5 meters tall, his body enhanced with cybernetic implants that glowed with internal power. His weapons were works of art, forged from metals that could cut through starship hulls. He had never lost a battle in over 300 years of fighting. "Now this should be entertaining," Kithara said, settling back in her chair. "Finally, someone who can put this upstart human in his place. Vextar has defeated champions from 50 different worlds. He once single-handedly destroyed a pirate fortress." Ambassador Krell nodded his agreement. "Yes, Your Highness. I predict this match will last no more than 2 minutes. The human has been lucky so far, but luck always runs out eventually." But as the battle began, it became clear that luck had nothing to do with Marcus Kane's victories. He moved around Vextar's enhanced form like a dancer, his blade finding gaps in the cyborg's armor that should not have existed. Every strike was precise, every movement calculated. Within 15 minutes, the supposedly undefeated warrior was kneeling on the arena floor, his weapons scattered and his systems overloaded. The crowd erupted in shocked cheers. Kithara stared in amazement as Marcus helped his fallen opponent to his feet. showing the kind of honor and mercy that was rare in galactic combat sports. The human warrior raised his sword in salute to the crowd, then looked directly at the royal box. For a moment, his eyes met Cathara's across the vast space of the arena. She saw something there that she had never noticed before, a depth of emotion that seemed entirely out of place. It was not the look of a victorious warrior acknowledging his audience. It was the look of someone carrying a terrible sadness, someone who had lost something precious and could never get it back. "Impossible," whispered Ambassador Krell. How did he know about Vextar's neural interface vulnerability? That information is classified at the highest levels. Queen Lysera said nothing, but her face had gone pale. She recognized the technique Marcus had used. It was something he had developed during the war, a method for disabling cybernetic systems that he had taught to Vorthak Special Forces units. The fact that he still remembered it after all these years, that he could execute it with such precision, proved beyond doubt that this was really her Marcus. The final match was announced for the following day. Marcus Kane would face Prince Thylex of the Zephyrian Federation, Cathara's own betrothed and the warrior she had chosen to represent the royal family's honor. Thylex was not just a skilled fighter, but also Cathara's closest friend and the man she expected to marry within the year. "Perfect," Cathara said with satisfaction. "Thylex will put an end to this human's surprising run. He has trained since childhood in the royal combat forms. He knows techniques that have been passed down through 40 generations of Zephyrian nobility. But Queen Lysera knew that Thylex, despite all his training and natural ability, would not be enough to stop Marcus Kane. She had seen Marcus face impossible odds before and emerge victorious through sheer determination and tactical brilliance. More importantly, she suspected that Marcus was not really here to win a tournament. He was here to force a confrontation that would expose the High Council's crimes. That evening, as the royal court celebrated the upcoming final match, Lysera found herself unable to concentrate on the festivities. She kept thinking about the evidence Marcus claimed to have, about the assassination plot that threatened their daughter's life. She knew she had to act, but every choice seemed to lead to disaster. The moment of decision came when Cathara made a particularly cruel joke about humans during the dinner celebration. She had been drinking Zephyrian wine and was in a playful mood, entertaining the court with her observations about the tournament. "I still cannot believe that pathetic human creature made it to the finals," she laughed, raising her glass in a mock toast. "Tomorrow Thylex will show everyone what real skill looks like. These humans are nothing but primitive savages who got lucky with some basic technology. They have no culture, no honor, no understanding of what it means to be truly civilized." Githyan, court laughed along with her. But Queen Lysera felt something break inside her heart. 25 years of watching her daughter grow up hating everything her father represented had finally become too much to bear. "Enough," Lysera said, her voice cutting through the laughter like a blade. The entire court fell silent. Cathara looked at her mother in surprise, confused by the sudden change in mood. "Mother, what's wrong?" Lysera stood from her throne, her hands shaking with emotion. For 25 years she had kept the secret, had allowed her daughter to believe lies about her own heritage. For 25 years she had protected the High Council's deception while watching the man she loved be erased from history, but she could not do it anymore. "You will show respect when you speak of humans," Lysera said, her voice carrying the full authority of the crown. "You will show respect because you do not understand what you are talking about." "But Mother, they're just humans. You've always said—" "I have lied to you," Lysera interrupted, the words pouring out of her like water through a broken dam. "I have lied to you about humans, about their capabilities, about their importance to our history. I have lied to you about many things." The court was frozen in shocked silence. Ambassador Krell looked like he was about to have a heart attack. Several nobles had gone pale with fear, sensing that something momentous was about to happen. "Mother, I don't understand," Cathara said, her voice small and confused. Lysera took a deep breath, knowing that the next words would change everything forever. There would be no going back after this, no returning to the comfortable lies that had protected them for so long. The human warrior in the arena, Marcus Kane is not just some random fighter who entered our tournament for prize money, she said. He is the man who saved our empire during the war against the Devourers. He is the greatest tactical mind of his generation. He is the bravest warrior I have ever known. She paused, looking directly into her daughter's eyes. And he is your father. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Kithra's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the crystal floor. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the absolute silence that followed. What did you say? Kithra whispered. The twin suns of Zephyria cast their golden light across the massive crystalline arena, creating rainbows that danced across the faces of thousands of spectators from dozens of different worlds. The grand tournament happened only once every 50 years, and beings from across the galaxy traveled here to witness the greatest warriors test their skills against each other. The arena itself was a marvel of Vorthak engineering, carved from a single massive crystal that could withstand the force of starship weapons. Princess Kithara sat in the royal viewing box, her tall, elegant form draped in flowing robes that shimmered like liquid starlight. Her skin had the pale blue tint common to all Vorthak, and her silver hair fell in intricate braids that marked her royal status. At barely a century old, she was considered young by her people's standards, but her sharp mind and quick wit had already earned her respect among the court. Her violet eyes sparkled with excitement as she surveyed the arena below, where the greatest warriors in the galaxy would soon compete for glory and riches. Mother, look at the size of that Krillian champion, Kithara said, pointing to a massive creature that stood nearly 4 meters tall. Its chitinous armor gleamed in the sunlight, and its 4 arms each held a different weapon. I heard it destroyed an entire pirate fleet single-handedly last year. Queen Lysara nodded absently from her throne beside her daughter. The older Vorthak woman possessed an ageless beauty that spoke of centuries of life and wisdom. Her own violet eyes held depths that suggested she had seen far more than most beings could imagine. She watched the preparations below with an expression that seemed both interested and distant, as if her mind was somewhere else entirely. Yes, the Krillians are formidable warriors, Lysara agreed. But remember, daughter, size and strength are not always the most important factors in battle. Kithra laughed, a sound like silver bells ringing. Of course not, mother. Intelligence matters too. That is why the Vorthak have ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. We combine physical power with mental superiority. The crowd began to roar as the first group of contestants entered the arena. Warriors from dozens of species marched in formation, each one a legend in their own right. There were Thraxian berserkers, with their massive hammers, Zephyrian blade dancers who moved like liquid mercury, cybernetically enhanced soldiers from the core worlds, and many others. Each warrior wore the colors and symbols of their homeworld, and each carried weapons that had been forged in the fires of countless battles. Look at them all, Kithara said with satisfaction. The strongest beings in the galaxy gathered here to prove who among them deserves the title of Grand Champion. It will be quite a show. Then something unexpected happened. At the very end of the procession, walking alone and seemingly ignored by the crowd, came a single human warrior. He was much smaller than most of the other contestants, standing barely 2 meters tall. His armor looked simple compared to the elaborate gear worn by the others, consisting of basic metal plates over a dark bodysuit. He carried only a single sword on his back and what appeared to be a standard energy rifle. Most surprising of all, he looked to be middle-aged, with gray streaks in his dark hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of many years and many battles. Kithra stared at the human for a moment, then burst into laughter that carried clearly across the royal box. Mother, surely you jest. They are allowing a human to participate in the grand tournament. Look at him. He looks like he belongs in a museum, not an arena. Several members of the royal court joined in her laughter. Ambassador Krell, a pompous Vorthak noble with an elaborate headdress, nodded his agreement. Your Highness speaks wisdom. I cannot imagine what the tournament organizers were thinking. Humans are a young species, barely evolved beyond their primitive origins. They have no natural weapons, no armor plating, no psionic abilities. What could one possibly hope to achieve against warriors like these? Perhaps it is meant as entertainment, suggested Lady Vera, another court member. A brief, amusing distraction before the real competition begins. Cathera continued to giggle as she watched the human warrior take his position among the other contestants. Yes, that must be it. Comic relief. Look at him standing there next to that Thraxian berserker. He barely comes up to the creature's waist, and his equipment looks like something pulled from a scrapyard. I give him 30 seconds in his first match, assuming his opponent does not die from laughter first. Queen Lysara said nothing, but her hands gripped the armrests of her throne with enough force to leave small marks in the crystal. Her eyes were fixed on the human warrior with an intensity that would have surprised her daughter if she had bothered to notice. The tournament master, an ancient Vorthak with ceremonial robes that marked him as a high-ranking official, stepped forward to address the crowd. His voice was amplified by psionic enhancement, reaching every corner of the massive arena. Citizens of the galaxy, warriors of legend, welcome to the grand tournament of Zephyria. For the next 3 days, these champions will compete in single combat to determine who among them is worthy of the ultimate prize. The winner will receive not only the crown of victory and 10 million credits, but also the right to make a single request of the Vorthak Empire within reason. The crowd roared its approval. Kithra clapped her hands together excitedly. Oh, this will be wonderful. I wonder what the winner will ask for. Land? Ships? A noble title, perhaps? The first match will be between Marcus Kane of Earth and Gorthak the Destroyer of Thraxus, the tournament master announced. Kythera nearly fell from her chair, laughing. Marcus Kane? What kind of name is that? It sounds so plain, so ordinary. And they are putting him against Gorthak the Destroyer. Mother, this is cruel even by tournament standards. That poor human will be paced on the arena floor within moments. The Thraxian berserker Gorthak entered the arena to thunderous applause. He stood over 3 meters tall and was covered in natural armor plating that looked thick enough to stop starship weapons. His forearms each held a different weapon, a massive warhammer, a chain with spiked balls, an energy cannon, and a sword longer than most beings were tall. He roared at the crowd, and the sound was like a starship engine exploding. Marcus, Kane entered from the opposite side of the arena. Compared to his opponent, he looked almost fragile. He drew his sword, a simple blade of unknown metal, and held it in a ready position. He showed no fear, but neither did he show any bravado. He simply stood there, calm and patient, as if he were waiting for a bus instead of facing a creature that could tear him apart with its bare hands. This is embarrassing, Kythera said, shaking her head. Someone should stop this before that poor creature gets hurt. It is like watching a child try to fight a war machine. The tournament master raised his hand and the crowd fell silent. Warriors, prepare for combat. Fight with honor and may the strongest prevail. A crystal chime sounded and the match began. Gorthak immediately charged forward with a roar that shook the arena walls. His massive feet pounded against the crystal floor as he raised his warhammer high above his head. The weapon was large, enough to crush a ground vehicle, and he swung it downward with enough force to shatter stone. Marcus Kane stepped to the side at the last possible moment. The hammer struck the arena floor where he had been standing, sending cracked spiderwebbing through the crystal. Before Gorthak could recover from the impact, the human had moved again, this time stepping inside the berserker's reach. What happened next surprised everyone in the arena, including Princess Kythera. Queen Lysara leaned forward in her throne, her violet eyes wide with something that might have been recognition. Her hands trembled slightly as she watched the human warrior begin his deadly dance.